Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about the large language model that I'm integrating to my ModSecurity dashboard. First, let's get started by me deploying the Docker container. This is going to take about a few minutes. I have my Docker open. It's already up already because I deployed it previously. Now let's go ahead and open up my dashboard. And this is my integration. It integrates a large language model called Mistral 7 billion. And the reason why I chose this model is because it's optimized to run on the CPU. Now, if you're planning on integrating a large language model to this kind of tool, or maybe specifically to this deployment, because I've released the code for the dashboard and the deployment for using Nginx on my security dashboard, maybe you want to do it by yourself, you could use a different model, but I chose this model. In any case, why do I need to modify it? Now, out of the box, Mistral 7B, it provides you some information, but it's very generic. But when it comes to mod security, we want it to be specific, to customize to your need. Let's go ahead and ask you the question. What is mod security? Obviously, I'm running it on my laptop, so it's probably going to take a little bit longer. It's a local model. Even though it's a smaller model, it's still running on a laptop that has multiple applications running. So honestly, in my opinion, this is uh, the speed is very generous. I think I wouldn't expect anything better running on my laptop like this, because of the model is still for my laptop is big, even though it's considered to be kind of smaller model. The developers had this model actually optimized to run on a CPU as well, which is great. It works fine. But if anybody's wondering why it's taking a little bit longer, because it's a still a large language model, it does have a lot of information, it's running a lot of algorithms in the back end, so it's just going to take a little bit longer. But it will come up with some information. Let's give it a few more, maybe 1 minute. Ollama. Ollama is just an open source framework. You can use it to run, customize, or deploy large language models. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to demonstrate using Ollama. I'm going to customize a model, my Mistral 7B, and have it provide me more specific information to mod security, updated information based on the latest core rule set for mod security. Let's go back to my model. My model is up, and let me go ahead and open up my dashboard. Dashboard is open already, and if you remember, we asked it the question, mod security is a web application firewall that acts as a reverse proxy and applies specified security rules to HTTP traffic of the applications, and it continues on. But this is very generic. And like I said, if you want something, you want to integrate it to the tool, you want it to be aware of all the sec rules, and specifically this sec rule, or we want to call it rule ID of the web application firewall. What does it pertain to? Specifically, when it comes to mod security, 942.500 is talking about detect SQLi in comments. And if I were to, and also I wanted to know specifically what the rule set, the sec rule looks like. This is a sec rule. Everything that you see here, the slash is because it goes to multi-line, because there's a lot of lines to the specific rule. That's the reason why you see slash. It means goes to the next line, next line, next line. You can actually put everything on one line, which is what I did when I created my, when I cleaned up the data set and getting it ready. That's what I did, which is a lot of work. You use a lot of Python script. It helps. You'll also use, I believe I used a lot of models like outside models like DeepSeek, kind of like doing your research, trying to clean up the data and all this stuff. You can do that as well, but basically that's what I did. So if I ask it there is to this specific rule, it's not going to answer this. It's just going to be generic and it's going to miss it. That's the reason why we need to do something. We need either train it. Training is very expensive endeavor. First of all, you need a bigger GPU. Even having a bigger GPU is probably might not even work sometimes. I heard like people have like 64G kind of they have a NVIDIA 64, and if you're using the bigger models, it just might not work as you plan it. And also the second option is you could use a cloud service. Google provides one. It's a paid service, and it will give you some kind of a bigger GPU that you could use on the cloud. That's another option. If you want to tune your model using either LoRa, there's like different frameworks that you could use to do that. Tune your model, train it better. Actually, when you're tuning or training it, you're actually training the underlying knowledge of the model, which is not what I'm doing here, because I'm doing everything on my laptop. So I don't have any paid subscriptions, and I don't also, this is just a laptop. It does have a NVIDIA card, but it's only 4 gigabytes and it's not going to run it. I know for a fact that if you want to train a model, even for a Mistral 7B, and I tried it, and I assure you it doesn't work. It's just like in the middle, it kind of craps out. So, but yeah, I did try it. So the second option that I seen is 2 options. I saw this Modelfile, I researched it. Now it is great, and let's go ahead and go to the action right now. So, how do we create this Modelfile? Now I already did my work, like I said, through a lot of research and kind of cleaning up my data set. I just want to point out, when it comes to having your large language model, effective large language model integrated to your custom needs, data set is the most important thing. That's why the company Scale AI is like, it became so huge, because it's actually working on cleaning up the data sets for the different AI companies. So even for a small project like this, if you have a data set that is not configured correctly, the template is wrong, the data is wrong, what ends up happening is the model starts hallucinating. You're not going to get a good help out of it. If anything, it's just going to confuse the user. So data set is the most important thing, and that's the most time-consuming thing, is cleaning up the data set so the model can have a better prediction on what you want it to do. So this is what I came up. This is my model file, and like I said, the system keyword is basically telling it how to behave. And in my case, I'm asking it to behave like a ModSecurity rule expert, and also provide me the information in this format: rule ID, target, phase, actions, tags. And I'm also letting it know, let me go ahead and kind of edit it, because it cuts it. You might not see the whole text, but let me go down. As you can see, it has all the rules set. I'm also letting it know, focus on only this rule IDs, because if you don't do that, it starts hallucinating. So this is my model file, and I just wanted to show you that way it kind of doesn't seem like it's cut off. But yeah, let's go ahead and start using it. I'm going to copy this. Now, when you're using the framework Ollama has a different commands that you could use. Like I said, Ollama is a model that you could use to run, customize, deploy large language models. What I'm going to do, I'm going to customize my model, which is Mr. 7B, so it can behave more like a ModSecurity aware model. And I'm going to use, Ollama has different commands. Ollama pull is actually to pull the model. Ollama run is to actually run the model. Ollama lists all the models that are available for Ollama right now. And Ollama create, this is what I'm going to use to create my custom model. And I'm going to supply it with a model file, which is the one that I created here. And after doing so, it will start behaving more like a model that is aware of the current rule sets, right? So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to use this. Let me go back to my container. Copied my model file already. I can release this on my YouTube channel if anybody wants to test this out or something on their own. But so Ollama container, you're gonna go to exec. I created a folder so I can organize it better. I call it AI app. Usually CD. I have all my other files because on this video, I'm going to demonstrate Ollama and how I use Modelfile to kind of customize it better, create a custom model. And I'm also going to demonstrate why it has its own major limitations, which is what I talked about. There is a window size token limitation 4096. And as you know it, ModSecurity has multiple rules. It's probably about around like 600, 700 something rules. If you include everything, it might be 100. Because by default, there are certain rules that are disabled. If you include all those, it's probably going to be like in the 700 to 800 rules. That's just the core rule set. It's not even including the custom rule set. Because if you want to make it more production ready, you need to create more rule sets because those are just the core. You need to create more that are actually aligned with the current attack vectors. So if you include all of this, you probably gonna need a bigger model file, but it's not gonna work because of the window that I'm talking about. And I'm gonna show you why that's the case. It's actually, I'm only able to do, I believe on one instance, it allowed me to do 26 rules. And on the other, it allowed me to do probably about 12 rule sets. After that, it starts hallucinating and it starts cutting out some of the contents. It would include some rules and cutting out, like start forgetting because of the window size. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. So let's go ahead and I don't have any model files, so I'm going to create one. Already have it. Control O, Control X. So I have my model file. Let me go ahead and create my model now. I'm gonna call it Mod AI and give it a version 1 and point it to the model file. All right, it is created now. So if I want list all my models, then right now it has the new model that I created. Now, I've talked about this previously. If I were to use the default model and ask it, let's say, let's ask it about this rule. So we use Ollama, run, Mistral, explain, mod security rule ID. Let's give it probably about a minute or two. And as you can see, it came up right back, but you will see it's not talking about anything related to 901.160. Anomaly scanner, as part of the anomaly scanner, 901.160 is actually, if you look at it, it's talking about allowed HTTP methods. It's not talking about anything that has to do with SQLite. So what that means is the model doesn't have the correct information, so it is just guessing, right? It's just a natural language model. So what it's going to do based on what it knows is just going to guess. And we don't want it to guess like this. because that's not the rule. It didn't even give you the sec rule, which is like the rule, the syntax of the rule it uses to block that. So we don't want this. This is basically the model kind of prediction, making predictions, not intelligent predictions, because it doesn't have all the rules. Now let's go ahead and ask the same question. Ollama, run mods AI1 our the same question, but for the model that we create. It's going to take a little bit longer. It's going to come back. And just to confirm that's the case 901.160, I'll go ahead and take you to the core rule set 901.160. As you can see here, default HTTP policy, allowed methods rule. See, I already set up. It should have responded this way, but instead it's talking about SQL injection, which is not the case. So let's go back, and this is probably going to take a little bit longer for for the model that I created, because basically what's happening right now, it is actually using the model file information that I gave it, because as you can see here, when it created the model file, the new model, mod AI1, it did create this existing layers. It's basically what it is doing is actually adding it to the context. Each time you actually call your prompt, if you call this model, what it is going to do is going to use it's going to use a model, it's going to use a question, the entire model file, and just forward it to the model. The model would use that information and adjust its context answer based on that. That's the reason why it's taking a little bit longer, because it has to process not only the question, but also the model file. And you will see how it actually adjusts its answer, and specifically to how you put it in the model file. So if I go back here and look in here, I even gave it on the system prompt, I even gave a specific instruction. You need to respond in this format. Give me a rule ID, target, phase, action, tags, rule text, and description. I also gave it information. These are the rules that you need to be focused on. And I also let it know the behavior needs to be just like the ModSecurity expert. So let's wait for it. Like I said, it takes a little bit longer. It's probably, that's one of the reasons why this would be good for training, but in practical purposes, as you can see here, I only have probably about, I believe I'll probably have 10 or 12 rules here. I can count it, but it's just not practical. For testing, it is okay, but unless Ollama, the framework, maybe extended their token limitation to accommodate to a bigger window in the future, even that is not really realistic, because then the rule set is going to grow even bigger, because there's going to be more attack vectors. So the model file will be even bigger than what it is required right now. So this is more not a practical way unless the framework changes, but I just want you to give you kind of an idea of what it looks like. It's pretty good. If you want to do some simple stuff using simple concepts using LLM, and you don't have you don't need a huge data set, then it looks like the way you would know it answered it is as you probably heard my CPU running crazy, right? It's because it was processing it. When it is quiet, it means it already answered the question. Now I can go back, and as you can see, it did. Rule ID, blah blah. It gave me allowed methods. It gave me everything, and also gave me the description. Default HTTP policy, allowed methods. This rule sets the default allowed HTTP methods get hit. And it even gave you, if you notice, this part of the description is not even on my original document, but since this is a natural language model or a large language model that learns from its own knowledge and applies it on the context I gave it, it added a little bit of information from what it knows, which is exactly what I wanted to do. So it looks great. And I can also ask it other questions, but only specifically to what I supplied it. If I were to give it some rule ID that doesn't exist, it's still gonna hallucinate. So let's give it like the last one, 901350. Uh, and as you can see here, I already loaded the model, the model file information that I received from the model file to memory. So it actually responded right away, which is one thing, good thing. And it responded exactly the same way. It used that information on the model file because this specific rule ID is talking about enforcing URL encoded. And I can also show you that in here. Enforce URL encoded. So force body processor URL encoder is actually going to use this description and add a little bit of its own information and give you additional information. So it's pretty good. I would have used it for my case as well, but like I said, as you can see here, my documentation, I only included this, but uh, the model will give you additional information. What does this mean? It's just additional information you're not even going to get on the core rule sets uh, GitHub information, GitHub repo, because it's going to explain it in detail. As you can see here, when the variable tx enforce body proc URL encode is set to 1, it will process a request body using URL decode universal action, and it will go on blah blah blah. But this is actually precisely what you wanted to do as a natural language model. But so everything looks great. Like I said, the only problem is if I decide, let's say, for instance, I have multiple. These are all the rules for the entire thing that as far as I cleaned up uh, some of them because I cleaned it up using a Python script. Sometimes it is possible because the way the GitHub, they were actually formatted in GitHub. Some of actually inside a comment. So yeah, one or two rules might be left out, but I spot check a lot of them, and it's pretty good. It's satisfactory for me. And going forward, I can clean up the data more if I find something that is not actually kind of precise to what it needs to be. But this is good. Now, let me give you one extra information on why this is not a realistic way of doing it. Now, this is another model file, a bigger model file. And I'm gonna try to use this, and I'm gonna show you that this is gonna start. I'm gonna create another model, mod AI 2, a second model, and using this model 5. But like we talked about, the window has specific requirements, so the model is gonna start cutting out some of the information, and when you ask it specifically for some of those rules, even though they're included in the model file, it's not gonna answer all of them. It's gonna say I don't know about these rules, or just it's gonna hallucinate. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna delete the current model file and create a new one. And this is a bigger model file, like I said. Control O, Control X. Let me make sure. Yeah, saved. So Control X. So now let me create a new model. Ollama, create mod AI 2. Let's call it 2. Now, before I do that, let me show you what models we have. We have two models, AI1, Mod AI1, and Mistral, which is the default one. So let me create a new one. Mod AI2. And we give it the new model file. All right, so now we created it. Ideally, you would expect this to answer all this question related to all the rules in here, but it's not going to do it. It's going to start hallucinate. We're going to start. So it's either going to cut the rule IDs on top or somewhere, but it's going to start hallucinate. But I can show you, I'm going to start here. 901.1001. 901.001. So let's ask for that. Ollama run mod AI to explain rule ID 1001. Yeah, I think I spelled missing. To explain rule ID 901.001. I was gonna tick, and we'll see how it goes. So after demonstrating this, obviously, how do you implement this in your code? Currently, the way I have it implemented is if I go to my dashboard, I already have a Python code that actually calls in the API, my Ollama API. That's how I'm able to actually get information on my front end. Basically, what my front end does is, let me go ahead and open up this first. So my front end we call actually this endpoint. I already have an endpoint defined or route defined for a post method to the dashboard, and my front end will call this endpoint, and this endpoint will call the Ollama API, make Ollama API request using the model of my choice and the model of my choice. Right now, I have it set up a mod AI1. I can make it Mistral, so it actually kind of uses a default model, but I don't want, we've seen it how it actually does that in the past, so I don't need to kind of prove that point. We already know that. So let's wait for it. And like I said, it's just gonna be doing this thing, and eventually it's gonna come back with an answer. And this is a demonstration on how large language models would sometimes hallucinate. So that's the reason why I decided for my use case, the best option would be the second one, which I'm going to go over in the next video. And it's actually very very convenient way. It's called retrieval augmented generation. It improves accuracy because this is actually using what's called, it creates a vector. It creates a vector. It uses, in my case, I use, you can use a lot of tools. You can use ChromaDB, Pinecone, or Physis. But I use Physis, and there's a Python script that I used. Basically what it does is actually it creates an indexed. It indexes the data, so you don't use a static list where, because anytime you use a static list, what happens is obviously there is a limitation for the window. But this is actually using dynamic list because of the fact that you're creating an index. And let me give you an example. User asks what does the rule 901.001 do? So this RAG system has three systems: retrieval, augmented generation. Now, the first steps, the steps search for the retrieval stage, search for relevant information from the knowledge base, from your JSON ModSecurity rule set, which you're supplying when you're actually running the first script. So when you're asking this question, what does the rule 901001 in RAG case? The retriever finds the JSON objects with the rule and returns rule text and description. That is fed to what's called generation stage. The large language model, in my case, 7B, receives the retrieved context along with a user question, a well-structured prompt, and then it generates an answer grounded in the retrieved context. So you are actually not, this is the workflow looks like. You use a question embedded in a query, and since you're using a vector that uses a search index, you don't have a whole lot of limitations as much as you do on when you're using a model file. So because what it does is it retrieves the top case similar, not the whole list, top case similar rules using vector search. This is a main app. It does vector search. What you're gonna do is actually when you supply it that the first rules that you're gonna create a file called rules.json, and you're gonna use what's called physis, and this is gonna create a vector index. And what the tool does is actually it uses vector search, and so it doesn't actually pull everything from the database or that you fed it in originally, the rules.json. It doesn't pull all of it. So it specifically pulls based on the search. That way it optimizes the window. It uses an optimized window, so there's no restrictions. You're not limited by it. So for my case, RAG works. I actually cleaned up my data set and it works perfectly. I'm going to demonstrate RAG in the next video. This is just to demonstrate, like I said, how the Ollama custom model works and this limitation. I think our search is back on. So as you can see here, as basically answer saying rule ID 901001 is not present in the provided list of rules. What that means is, because the window has a limitation, it's gonna truncate the first information. Because if you look at the model, let's look at the model file. So if you look at the model, that's the first rule. And when you're trying to actually, first off, when you're creating the custom model, what it does is there is a window limitation. So since this is on top, this is going to be the first thing it learns, right? And the last thing it's going to learn is about the rules on the bottom. So obviously the new model that I created, Mod AI 2, is going to remember some of the rules, but not all the rules because of the limitations on the token or the window size. So that's the reason why, even though, as you can see here, the model file that I used has the rule ID, it truncated it. So that is one of the limitations on it. I hope that explains everything. And also, just to show you how I would do it on my, so my mod, currently I have two models, custom models that I created, which is Mod AI 1 and Mod AI 2. So Mod AI 1 is ready to go. All I have to do is actually I need to go to my specific backend code that calls the API and change it to my custom model. In this case, if I go Mod AI 1, then it will give me specifically for that. So let me go ahead and make sure this is the case here as well. Mod AI 1. So they both have Mod AI 1. So if I go back to my let me open up my dashboard, which is 8,000. So if I were to ask it now, this front end would use my custom model because I changed it, and it will give me the information specifically to the updated information that I'm using. And let's go ahead and test it, right? And it'll be 901160. Because sometimes the reason why I like to do that is it might be using, you know what, let me go ahead and close this. And also let me close this and open it again. That way I'm not confused about the new window. I don't want it to use a cache, so let me go back again. Open my dashboard again. The reason why you see that something like this is because, as I said, my Ollama container is running in the back end. Sometimes it would freeze up because, you know, like I said, I'm running a full model on my not so. This laptop is not, I would say, old, but considering how things have actually came along since 2000. I think I bought it in 2022. So I would say it was 3 years. I didn't buy it, the model brand new, so probably I'll give it about like a year after it came out. So I wouldn't say this is a brand new model. And it being a laptop, because as you all know it, GPU, better GPUs are actually on the desktops, not on laptops. It could run some decent games, but it's not that like one of the most powerful laptops out there. It is definitely not. So that's the reason why you'd see sometimes when you pull some things up, it's not because the code is not working, it's because my processing power on this laptop. Let's go back and try to see if I can open it now. Show ports. Let me open it again. All right, so finally we are back. So let me say, what is rule ID? So since it's actually using my mod AI 2, mod AI 1, it should provide me with more updated information, which because this is going to use my updated model, and you will see it as well. And the way we would know is it's not going to guess. It's going to give me exactly the rule set. 901.160. If we go back, uh, this is 942. I'm actually showing you exactly from the core rule sets GitHub 901. So this is where it is, 901.160. And here you go. So it should answer this question with this description saying default HTTP policy, allowed methods, and also it should exactly give me this sec rule, right? So yeah, and as you can see here, past OSPRS and allowed methods and hit options, and it did say default HTTP policy allowed methods, which is what I have here. So yeah, and this tutorial about entirely about one of the methods. Like Modelfile is great using Ollama, but it does have limitations for production work. So the next one is actually the most interesting one, I feel like, and I've gone through it not in detail, but I touched it a little bit, which is a RAG system, and I'm gonna go over the scripts that I used, and I can also share it. Eventually, I'll share it on my YouTube channel if anyone wants to use it and follow through and actually create the same large language model. Maybe you want to use something different. You might some people might I've heard some people have a better success using Tiny Llama or maybe Llama, but use Mistral 7B, and this is what I have. And also I'll show you I used RAG, which is very effective for my use case. and I'll go over it on my next video. So, but this one is entirely dedicated to the other, which is using the Modelfile. All right, thank you for. This is what I'm going to use